Whisper Nation, the time is finally here. Our draft kit is officially out on thefantasywhispers.com. And today on our 67th episode, Johnny, Chelsea, and I are going to take you through this draft kit, this beautiful masterpiece, our Sistine Chapel, as we like to say around here, Whisper headquarters. We love it. We love you. And it's coming to you right now.
Yes, we're back again.
Hey, let's pump up the volume.
Right here.
What's up, Whisper Nation? It's Monday, July 15th, and you're listening to episode 67 of the Fantasy Whispers with your host, Johnny Game Time Hicks, Big Travie, and I'm Chelsea. If you want to follow the show, you know you can do so on Twitter at TF Whispers. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at The Fantasy Whispers, and you should definitely check out the website. That's where you're going to find that draft kit. We're launching it today, and make sure you also sign up to be a Patreon subscriber.
Today, so by the time you're listening to it, you can be signed up for that draft kit. And obviously the Patreon, when that launches, you'll get a discount on the draft kit as well if you join one of those tiers. So a lot of great things coming. We have been working so hard, Johnny, putting in those long hours, just really grinding away. Chelsea's been doing a lot of the unsung hero work in the background, helping us out here. And I am just so stoked for today's show to hop into this and discuss the draft kit in detail with not only you, but Whisper Nation.
Yeah, Travis. Oh, sorry, Chelsea. I just want to jump in here real quick and go
for it.
I want to apologize to Whisper Nation right now. My eyes are probably super red on the video, and it's because we've been cranking away at this draft kit, and it is awesome. It truly is really, really awesome. A lot of good work in there, a lot of good tidbits and facts to help you dominate your fantasy draft.
And the whole thing's so beautiful. And before we jump into what's actually behind the pages of the draft kit, I want to ask, because, I mean, as we're whittling down the final minutes, getting this draft kit out, things are still changing. The NFL is evolving. And one of the big things that happened in the last week is Melvin Gordon saying he deserves more. So I want to get a quick look at what do you think is going to happen with the Melvin Gordon situation?
Well, I'll just start, Johnny. I know Johnny's take on this a little bit, so he'll jump into that here in a second. I think what this really speaks to more than anything is we may have seen the last of getting Austin Ekeler at a really good value here. I think regardless of what happens with Melvin Gordon, this has cast a little bit of doubt on Melvin Gordon, which will then make Eckler's draft price rise. But he may still be worth it depending on how it happens. What we have now is all the industry or the really big fantasy heads drafting right now. Once people in the general public start drafting, we may see a little bit different. Maybe that value stays where it needs to be. But right now, I'm getting a little nervous about Austin Ekeler being such a good deal.
Yeah, I mean, I am a big fan of Austin Ekeler this year. I love where his draft stock is. I think a lot of people are overlooking him, whether Melvin Gordon's there or not. But listen, if you are a Melvin Gordon owner, do not panic. This is routine. The guy is making pennies, and he's one of the best running backs in the league. David Johnson did this last year. Todd Gurley's done this. All these running backs have done this, and teams in the NFL. This isn't like the NBA where guys switch all the time, different teams. This is the NFL. Guys typically do not change teams that often, if at all. That's why the Antonio Brown news was so big and so drama-filled, was because we really hadn't seen that a lot happen in the NFL. So don't panic if you're a Melvin Gordon owner. If you aren't a Melvin Gordon owner, take this time to go to the Melvin Gordon owner, if I can speak this morning, go to that owner and try to get him off of him, because his value is not going to go down. I can guarantee you that. And Melvin Gordon is a super solid running back, which we will talk about in the show. He's one of a tidbit whisperers or secret. But I'm just saying, Melvin Gordon is a stud. They will work this out. They've got $11 million in cap space. They'll work out some kind of deal. They are not going to let go of Melvin Gordon. He is a centerpiece to that offense. I'm not worried about it one bit.
I'm glad you're not worried about it, Johnny, because I want a new deal, or you're going to have to trade me from the show.
Wow.
So give me a contract.
Unreal, dude. See what
At least pay me.
Whisper Nation, you see what I deal with all the time?
I just am excited because the draft kit is that up to date that even news that just happened in the last week is in there. Everything's folded in. So everyone's going to really want to check out. And I think the show where we're diving into the pages is going to be really exciting. So let's get into it.
Obviously, we just started last year, and so we didn't get a chance to really get this show out to you guys last year. We made the kit, but we weren't able to dive in and take you through and walk you through it. So that's what me and Johnny want to do here today. We want to go through everything this has to offer. We're really excited about that. I mean, Johnny, what's the last thing you spent $10 on?
Ooh, I'm not gonna lie. It was Panda Express last night, and that was very, very delicious. But this is equally delicious for $10. Well, the big thing I think, Chelsea, you kind of touched on it, is this isn't like a fantasy magazine or anything like that. Like, we will be updating this throughout the off season. So the $10 that you spend now for this draft kit, it's going to be being updated consistently with player news and things that are coming out, changes in rankings. So and we're going to be adding to it as well with some more profiles and things like that. So that's what's really, really exciting about your value here, and that it's just not a product that you're going to get, today on July 15th, and it's, could be irrelevant in a couple weeks because the NFL is that changing. This is something that we will continue to update as information comes out, like the Melvin Gordon information.
It's going to last forever. Forever and ever. All right, so only $10. Head on over to the fantasywhisperers.com. Get your draft kit today, and I'm just going to go over what is all included in here. I know we don't have a lot of time here, so I'm going to try and make it quick. So our draft kit contains a draft day cheat sheet. This sheet is filled with whispers, wannabes, our take on breakouts and busts, do not draft players, some tier jumpers, offensive line rankings, strength of schedule, tiered rankings, really great stuff there. We're going to have our premium player projections. Me and Johnny have spent countless hours tweaking these team by team, statting these teams out, getting the market share for the rushing and the targets done. So we'll have every single player that's fantasy relevant statted out for the 2019 season. We're going to have our rankings, of course, across all scoring formats, PPR, half PPR, standard, and we're going to have our flex rankings as well. We'll have our 2019 risk assessor, which I can't wait to talk about this, Johnny. We had players that were risky last year, so we can't wait to talk about that. This is risky.
It's all right,
for
Travis.
me.
We've been up super late, so it's cool.
Yeah, bear with us. We're going to have our consistency charts. For the yearly charts, those go back as far as 2014. And we have last year's weekly consistency breakdown, so you get to take a look at that too. Over 125 in-depth player profiles that me and Johnny have been cranking away, writing our outlooks for each player, about the top 125 players. And like Johnny said, we'll be adding to that as the offseason goes on. We also have 2 bonus statistical articles or statistical spotlights from our sponsor, Fanatic, FANATIQ. That's where fantasy meets IQ. Go and download the app today in the Apple App Store. It's a great app, and we're going to bring you some of their knowledge in the kit as well. And then finally, our value-based drafting cheat sheet. Basically, this takes a number system, applies it to each player, and lets you know what their value is based on where you're drafting them, based on your league settings. Your league scoring settings. So really great stuff. Once again, all of this, and there's so much more in there that I'm not even getting to the nuggets that are inside each one of these categories. And it's only $10 at thefantasywhisperers.com. So Johnny, what do you say we start diving into it and go down some of these guys we have in here and tease it out for everybody?
100%. Let's do it. I'm excited.
All right, we'll start with the draft day cheat sheet. This is going to be your printable version. Also, we'll have the electronic version, so you'll have everything you need there. And basically, it's going to give you everything that you need on draft day to skim over. And part of that is breakouts and busts, right?
Yep.
And our version of that is whispers and wannabes. And so, Johnny, give us your whisper or one of your whispers for the 2019 season.
So, Travis, as I was breaking down all my numbers and, doing our write-ups and everything like that, one major whisper that I came across is, we're always looking for running backs, right, in our drafts. We want to find the gem running backs in the later rounds because those guys can typically really put us over the top and winning that championship. So when I was doing this, we did touch on Austin Eckler, which is another great one. But since we talked about him, I'm going to go with Latavius Murray. I will continue to beat this drum. I hope Whisper Nation really listens to this because he is a tremendous value right now in the 7th, 8th round of drafts. Right now, current ADP that could rise, especially as more people get on the Latavius Murray bandwagon, as they should. This guy is a solid running back, Travis. Over the last 3 years, he's he's comes in third with total rushes behind Todd Gurley and Mark Ingram, who just left this offense. There's a lot of rushing ability there as far as being able to get the rock, because the Saints run a tremendous amount, Travis. One of the top run-first offenses in the league over the last 5 years since Drew Brees actually went to the Saints, which is a little bit surprising because you wouldn't think of that from a Drew Brees-led offense. You think of he's got a cannon arm, super accurate, they're going to throw a lot. Well, actually, they ended up running a significant amount, and we know what Alvin Kamara is. They want to keep him fresh. So this really paves a really nice role for Latavius Murray, and I think a lot of people, the consensus in a lot of leagues wouldn't think about that. They just think, oh, Mark Ingram's gone. That means Alvin Kamara is going to instantly take up all these extra carries, but that's not going to be the case. And so for me, I'm going to take advantage of that in a lot of my leagues, and I'm going to grab Latavius Murray later on in drafts.
Yeah, I like your take here, and we talk about this with, Sean Payton has come out verbally and said he does not want to give Alvin. I mean, he wants to keep him fresh. He wants to keep him efficient. So they're going to work him a ton in the passing game, and you shouldn't be concerned about drafting Alvin Kamara in the top 4. He's going to get his. Don't worry. But I think this more speaks to the fact that the Saints have been kind of the cream of the crop in the NFL as far as rushing and multiple running backs. Rushing touchdowns, rushing attempts. They are trying to tailor this offense to help ease the load of Drew Brees. And in doing so, that means there is plenty of work to go around. And I love your whisper, one of your whispers for 2019 in Latavius Murray. On the flip side of our whispers, we have the wannabes. These are the guys that wish they could be whispers, but are not. So basically guys that we think are just not going to cut it this year. And for me, Johnny, one of my big wannabes this year is David Njoku. Look, I know we want this guy to be really special, extremely gifted, very physical, giant tight end, very fun. If, the idea in our head is that he will be fun, he'll catch a lot of touchdowns, he'll be great. He only got 89 targets last year, Johnny, and then OBJ is coming to town, okay? So last year, David Njoku, without OBJ, got 56 receptions, 639 yards, 4 touchdowns. So not too special. We got to take into account that the offense kind of turned the corner in the last 8 weeks. So maybe there's something there. But with OBJ coming to town here, Johnny, I have him and Landry taking up 45% of this market share for targets, not leaving a lot there for Njoku. And I only project him for about 72 targets. So a dip in targets from last year, 42 catches, 465 yards and 4 touchdowns. Basically, that would have been 64.3 standard fantasy points. And in 2018, that would have been tight end 19. I think you can do better. I think you could get more upside from other tight ends that are going to be bigger parts of their offense. Yes, I think this offense takes the next step. Do I think Njoku is a big-time contributor to that factor? I don't think so.
Yeah, Travis, I'm staying off the David Njoku bandwagon. You're going to get a lot. This is what you're going to hear. Oh, but Ted Monken came over from Tampa Bay, and Ted Monken, targets the tight ends a lot. Well, sure, but the thing is Ted Monken's not running this offense. They've already come out and said that he wasn't going to be running this offense. He's more of just kind of like a placeholder, or he'll help with the plays, or help call them. But this is not going to change from what we saw last year. And to be honest with you, Travis, we didn't see a significant increase in David Njoku's production over the second half of the season. And so for me, it's hard to trust in that. And so I'm fading David Njoku, and I really like that wannabe, because I think that's exactly where he's going to land. And fantasy owners who, think that just because Ted Monken comes in and, this offense is going to be so great, we do think that, but you realize that there's only one ball that can go around, and when you start divvying up target and market shares, that piece of pie ends up getting smaller and smaller when he had a much bigger piece of the pie last year and he couldn't really do anything with it. So I will be also staying away from David Njoku this year.
All right. Also, on the same vein of staying away from guys, we have a category of just do not draft. Players that are just going way too high to return any draft value, in our opinion. And so, Johnny, I'm going to let you kick this off with one of your do not draft players for 2019 from our draft day cheat sheet on the Fantasy Whisperers draft kit, which you can find at thefantasywhispers.com.
So, Travis, this guy is also to say, like, there would become a point, right, where David Njoku would become a value, right? I think that, if you get him at the right price, he would become a value. Well, the do not draft guys are literally guys that I would not take. They would have to drop significantly from their value. And so for me, that guy is Amari Cooper in this year's draft, currently going in the late 3rd round, early 4th round. And Travis, he's like the 13th wide receiver coming off the board. And unfortunately, that's where I see his ceiling at. And do I think Amari Cooper's end of number seasons are going to be fantastic? I do. I think that he'll be over 1,000 yards receiving. I think that he'll have, 6 to 8 touchdowns, and, he'll have 80 to 100 receptions. But so with me saying all that, Travis, a lot of people are going to, listening to the show are going to say, well, if he's getting those kind of stats, why wouldn't you want a guy like that on your team? Well, the main reason is just his inconsistency and what we've seen throughout his entire career, Travis. He is known for these boom and bust games, literally. He will have games and weeks where he is the wide receiver 1 overall, and he'll have multiple weeks like that throughout the season. But he will also have multiple weeks where he is not getting you any production. And that kind of player kills a fantasy team because he becomes unreliable. You start questioning whether you should start him or you should sit him. And so for me, I don't want that headache. I don't want to deal with that. And I think that you can get better value around where he's being drafted. So for me, Amari Cooper is a complete stay away. I will not have him on any of my fantasy teams this year.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I went through my projections on Dallas, and I really see that he's going to get a ton of the volume in the passing game. I just don't know if Michael Gallup will take the next step and take some of that. We also have Randall Cobb in there, who's demanded quite a bit of targets from Aaron Rodgers when he's been on the field. So I think that could be the biggest hindrance here for Cooper and his consistency. Elliott. Yes, Ezekiel Elliott continues to go up in target market share, and he went up with Cooper in the lineup. He averaged more catches per game. So just, I just think there are better bets at upside when you're in that point in the draft. Whereas, like you said, I think Cooper's ceiling may be right where he's being drafted. Mm-hmm. But speaking of guys that can jump out of that tier of where they're being drafted, we have our tier jumper category on the cheat sheet. And one of those guys for me, Johnny, is Christian Kirk of the Arizona Cardinals. One of my favorite breakout candidates this year. Kirk, you look at last year, 43 catches for 590 yards, 3 touchdowns. That was in 12 games of work. That was a 13.7 yards per reception average. Really good stuff there out of him. And that was with Josh Rosen. I mean, I didn't know that guy could throw it for 13 yards, let alone get it to Christian Kirk each time.
Yeah, I was shocked on that stat too. So
yeah, I really see him coming forward, leading this team in the yardage and touchdowns alone right now, just as that guy for this offense. We've seen it the way, depending on where they use Kirk, but if they use him in the slot, especially, air raid tends to favor the slot. There are 2 slot receivers in the air raid offense too, so they seem to soak up those stats. But I wouldn't be surprised here if we even saw Kirk lead the team in targets and kind of he takes over for Fitzgerald. As I have it now, Fitzgerald has the most targets. That may be subject to change based on some, training camp or, training camp news based on rapport. Because look, Kyler Murray and Christian Kirk actually have some time together playing in college before Kyler Murray went on to Oklahoma. So Kirk does have some background with him. And, my conservative projections have him for 76 catches, 1,039 yards, 4 touchdowns. That would have been 138.5 standard points last year. would have made him the wide receiver 19 in standard. And right now he's going in the 8th round as wide receiver 34. Give me that value. I think once again, I think those are conservative projections. I think he could score more touchdowns. I think he could get more yards, especially if this offense does what everybody kind of thinks it's going to do and makes that turn.
Yeah, I think that Christian Kirk is an absolute bargain right now. I think that he's definitely a guy that you want to take that dart throw on because you've seen the upside and what he can do with a quarterback that was, dare I say, incompetent at the NFL level. Maybe I don't, that could be, but he gets Kyler Murray in there, and a lot of buzz here in Arizona. Travis, is everyone is so excited for this offense, and dare I say, there's a lot of hope in this city for what this team could be. Now we do have to see it, evolve on paper or evolve from paper onto the field. But Travis, you like all the things that he's got going for him. And I think that this could be a very big breakout year. My only concern with Christian Kirk, is that, his name will get out there. It's already starting to get out there. So I'm really hoping it doesn't super drive up his value because if he gets into the 7th round, maybe 8th, that could be a little bit more risky right there for the other guys that are going in that area. There's a little bit the running back position I think is pretty flip-floppy there, but you can get some gems in that area. So I would probably take a stab at those over a guy like Christian Kirk in that area. But if his ADP stays around where it's at right now, I absolutely love that.
All right, Johnny, we're going to move on here, talking offensive line rankings, kind of our takeaway from that portion of the cheat sheet. Look, when you're sitting here and you're making a decision on draft day between a couple guys and you're looking at their offensive line for running back, that's huge. That means everything. So if you're trying to decide between a couple guys, take a peek at that right-hand side of the draft cheat sheet, which will give you our offensive line rankings, and you can kind of look at, help be that last deciding factor in between those two guys. So did you have any big takeaways when you were looking at the offensive line rankings that we came up with?
Yeah, Travis. So I love looking at these. Not that I take it into a huge consideration, but if I am teetering between two guys, I do look at their offensive line, and that does help me decide on which one I want to go with. I want the one that has the better offensive line. Shocker, right? But something I did find that was really interesting, Travis, is you look at, they are color-coded, so you look into the red area, you have the Los Angeles Chargers, you got the New York Jets, you got the Oakland Raiders, and you got the Cincinnati Bengals as some of the worst offensive lines in the league. And the reason I bring up those, Travis, are because all of those guys, I mean, even Minnesota Vikings, there are a lot of running backs that are going
first-round picks.
Yeah, first-round picks, second-round picks that are going in the draft, and yet their offensive line is amongst the bottom. So what concern do you have? We're majorly down on Le'Veon Bell, and seeing that his offensive line is ranked 28th is not anything that could help his value. But Travis, so talk Whisper Nation through what you think about their offensive lines being that bad. They're the bottom half. Are you more willing to take a Damian Williams in the 2nd round because Kansas City has the 17th ranked the 17th best offensive line, or would you rather go with maybe Dalvin Cook, who has a significant higher floor and possibly equal ceiling, but his offensive line is significantly worse?
Yeah, I mean, if you're putting me between Dalvin Cook and Damian Williams, it's going to be hard for me to take Damian Williams with all the upside of that Kansas. This kind of just solidifies it a little bit, though, too, because Kansas City is 17th in our rankings. So not terribly great either themselves, but not, as bad as Minnesota. I wanted to go back to Melvin Gordon, though, and Los Angeles Chargers offensive line. Mm-hmm. I've been fading Melvin Gordon as part of that top 5 for a little while now, and now I might be at that point in the middle of the 1st round where I'm ready to take a guy like Devontae Adams or DeAndre Hopkins over a Melvin Gordon because of the couple
Wow.
things that are happening.
Disrespect.
Well, a lot of things.
The
Well, a lot
amount
of things are happening, right?
disrespect that's coming out of your mouth right now.
We have a shroud of doubt coming into the offseason. We have these offensive line rankings. We have Eckler emerging. Justin Jackson came in last year. Say what you want about Melvin Gordon. He hasn't been the most efficient runner. He's been a great fantasy football player. He's been a very efficient in that matter. But as a pure runner, he hasn't been the most efficient. He finally did that last year. But does this line cause some concern? I think it does a little bit for me. And so that's, it's good. It's always good to look at these, when you're making those tough decisions. But moving on, Johnny, the last part of the cheat sheet is our strength of schedule. Our playoff strength of schedule is also built into that. So you could look at the team or the players based on position, and then which of these positions for each team has the best playoff strength of schedule. One of the biggest takeaways I had was New England had the 5th best running back schedule, and they also had potentially one of the best fantasy running back playoff schedules. So for me, if you think that Sony Michel is not worth the risk, you need to reassess what you're doing out there. I know the knee issue is swirling around. He's also been reported to come back and running full tilt now. So the touchdown upside alone for the RB1 in the New England offense is great, let alone an RB1 that they drafted in the 1st round last year. I understand that they drafted Damian Harris. They did that in the 3rd. I honestly think that is insurance for the knee of Sony Michel. And I think right now, going as RB23, in the 4th round, middle of the 4th round, his floor is basically an RB2 if he's not injured. And so I think he's an RB1 on any given week with that touchdown upside in that offense. And as Brady gets older, this team has always ran a lot. But as he gets older, they're going to continue to run a ton. And with that schedule, that spells bad for the rest of the league if they've got a great running back schedule.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what they do now is based around the run game and that premise of taking what the defense will give you, and especially with Tom Brady and his situation. Listen, Father Time is undefeated. I understand we keep saying this year after year, and Tom Brady keeps proving us somewhat wrong, but eventually the wheels will fall off, and if you have the running back for that team, that's going to be a huge boost, because if that's Sony Michel, which, every indication is that it should be as long as he's healthy, that guy is a stud. We saw him carry that Patriots team to the Super Bowl, and so seeing what that upside is, I mean, Travis, just a few years ago, it was, LeGarrette Blount who had the monster season,
And you look at what Sony Michel did in the playoffs. I mean, he scored 6 touchdowns in the playoffs. That was average of 2 per game. So when they are running and they're going, they're scoring all the time. I think the caveat here, Johnny, is that because of that strength of schedule, because of who New England is, because of who Tom Brady is, you need to invest in the New England backfield, regardless of who it is. If you want to wait because of value and you want to take Damian Harris later, by all means, but get yourself a piece of New England's backfield, because if anything were to happen to one of the other guys, you're going to be sitting pretty with a guy that's, they live in scoring range.
Yeah, and Travis, I think the significant thing is we were listening to another podcast, late round quarterback. How
dare you?
Yeah, and a stat that I thought was really, really interesting, right, is that running backs, when you're tending to look for a breakout running back, they tend to not be handcuffs, right? Genuinely, they aren't guys that are a player goes down and then the next guy comes up and he's like the RB1. However, when you are looking at breakout candidates, Travis, you're looking at guys who can actually just take over the role. That's more so what you're looking for when you're taking these stabs. I think Sony Michel has this in his hands as long as he stays healthy. And so for me, I think that kind of solidifies for me the Sony Michel value. But like you said, you just want to get a piece of this because they will run the ball a lot. They will dink and dunk to their running backs. And so if you just get a single piece of this, we know it's going to be, a running back by committee, that we know that. So if you can just get a piece of that, that's what the difference is between Damian Harris being a handcuff and him being the guy that could just take over. And so for me, I do like his value the most out of anybody's, just because he's going way later in the draft.
Yeah.
But Sony Michel definitely has a very nice value, and I think he's a solid pick.
That podcast Johnny mentioned is the Late Round Podcast, hosted by JJ Zacharyson of Numberfire and FanDuel. Follow at Late Round QB. That is a great follow. He's a great podcast. You guys should be checking it out. But any more breakouts from us will be coming from our draft kit, which of course you can find at thefantasywhispers.com for only $10. So moving along into some of the things we offer in that premium player projections and rankings. Once again, Johnny, we talked about at the top of the show, Johnny and I go through each team. We stat out from a team level how many plays they're going to run. We then come through the rushing market share, the target market share, how that quarterback's going to play, his interception rate, all that good stuff. We have done the heavy lifting for you to pull away all those projections so you can come into your draft confident that the range of outcomes for every single player that you're, that's on your draft board. And so one of the big things for me, Johnny, was a projections takeaway I took is that we've talked all offseason about Devonta Freeman coming into a role that could be the highest volume of his career. Well, I actually statted him out at pretty much that. 264 carries, 1,162 yards with 9 touchdowns, 98 targets, 74 receptions, 554 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. No Coleman in this offense, Johnny. The offensive line continues to improve. They've added, Calvin Ridley's come on as a nice secondary piece to help the chains keep moving in this offense. I really see a lot of good things as long as Devonta Freeman stays healthy for him in this. I mean, I'm projecting him out to get a chunk of the yardage here just because the lack of talent behind him and Ito Smith, Quadre Allison, and, I think Devonta Freeman is really poised. This is a guy who's already been RB1 in fantasy just a few years ago. He's really poised, and I saw that coming through in the numbers to me during this process.
Yeah, I mean, Devonta Freeman continues to be a very, very nice value. I think that it will start to increase the closer that we get to the draft. I do think that value will increase. And that draft cost will be a little bit more, but I don't see it jumping a whole round. So, Travis, I think that Devonta Freeman is going to have a monster workload. I mean, you've seen it here, Whisper Nation, on this show with me, trashing Ito Smith. And I still stand by that. So with that goes Devonta Freeman is
call out Ito Smith show.
Hey, sometimes you just got to plant your flag. And when a guy does you dirty, you just got to call a spade.
just taking it out on him, man. That's the epitome of recency bias, Whisper Nation. You don't always have to be burned by a player and then just come on our podcast and trash him, but that's Johnny's take. But Johnny, did you have any?
It's true.
Johnny, did you have any takeaways though from the projections and your rankings work that you were doing?
Yeah. So a monster takeaway is, Travis, just how different and how much of a game changer the rushing ability of a quarterback has on their overall impact and overall rankings, right? We're seeing a lot more of these quarterbacks coming in with the ability to not only pass and be accurate, but also, put their head down and run and get positive yardage. And not only that, but these are guys who, are used to running, so they're used to knowing how to get out of bounds, how to go down, things like that. And we see what that does to their overall draft value. And so for me, it continues to solidify the fact that you can literally just punt this position, Travis. Dare I say that, that position could be treated like the kickers and the defense, and you could just wait till the very end, Travis, and grab one of you got Josh Allen, you've got Lamar Jackson, you've got Mitch Trubisky. All of these guys are going super late in drafts, and you can pick them up, and they've all had quarterback 1 weeks, all of them.
Yeah.
And so for me, I just was looking at that with their rushing ability gives them a very solid floor. Dak Prescott is another one that comes to mind who's going super late in drafts, and he's been a QB1 his most of his career. So I would definitely wait on the quarterbacks. It's so deep, and I would honestly treat that as a kicker position or a defense position, and just stack up on the running backs, the wide receivers, and tight ends if you want to go in that direction.
I love this part of the draft kit because I am definitely somebody who's gone after the sexy, shiny quarterback in Aaron Rodgers like every year in our league of record. And it's been
So
painful to
sexy.
see him, get get points that are in ranges where I could have picked up somebody so much later in the draft. So I am not going to go after the sexiest quarterback in the league and Aaron Rodgers this year. I'm going to take this draft kit to heart and find a late round quarterback because I think there's some real value there.
Listen, Chelsea hit it on the head there, and we forget how anomalous guys like Patrick Mahomes and Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers' seasons. I mean, maybe not so much for Aaron Rodgers because he hovers around 30 touchdowns career, but he's a special dude. But like these seasons that Pat Mahomes and Peyton Manning have of 50 touchdowns that are really league-winning seasons for you in fantasy, they're very anomalous. It does not happen all the time. In fact, the year after it usually drops off in a big way. That touchdown rate comes down a lot. But this is to say, like when Johnny says you can stream the position, you can. We've seen data to prove that you can stream the position and end up around QB 6 or 7 if you do it correctly, if you do it within your means. And yeah, it's going to take some work, but anything in life worth a damn, you have to work for. Now, listen, we're going to do a lot of that work for you with our fantasy football draft kit, which is on the fantasywhispers.com for only $10. But you gotta look to your own means and know your league, of course, too, and who mates are going to draft and all that. But yeah, I love that takeaway, Johnny. That was definitely riding through for me during this process as well. All right, Johnny, moving on to our next piece. This is one I'm really excited about, Johnny. Our risk assessor, something Johnny concocted in the lab there with a buddy of ours, John Credit. He's in the background pulling the strings. He's like the man behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz. So
he's the numbers guru.
Yeah, so he's crunching the numbers. Anyways, Risk Assessor is the sheet we'll be giving out. You can change your version of the Risk Assessor based on the points you're scoring in your league. But one of our biggest takeaways from last year, Johnny, was...
So, sorry, Travis, not to cut you off, but just to give you guys, just to explain the Risk Assessor a little bit, what we do is we take a ton of fantasy experts in the league and the community, and we compile all of their projections, and then what we do is we rank each player. So we'll get, you got the high and the low, and then we put that into a percentage of what are experts saying that this player, what are the range of outcomes? And then based on that, what that wide range of fantasy output could be, we assess it a risk number. And like Travis is going to talk about right now, that revealed a significant amount of information.
Yeah, so last year we had some guys that were, we saw as highly risky, like maybe Saquon Barkley, okay? We had high risk on Saquon Barkley, and obviously he panned out. I mean, in our profiles, we said he had that top 5 upside, so we knew it was there, but we thought based on the offense, which it ended up being tragic, there was some risk, and it's definitely there again this year. In fact, it's something that I've come around to say is that Saquon is actually my number 4 as it stands right now.
Whoa,
in that top 4.
Breaking news. Where's our breaking news drop?
And that's just because there's way more risk around Saquon than any other of the 4 guys as far as offense is concerned. And so I think of all those guys, the bust ability of Saquon is the highest. But that being said, we were wrong on Saquon. He killed it, and you guys hopefully drafted him in your leagues. If you looked at Fournette last year, we had a 71% total risk number there, and he ended up finishing as the RB38. We know what happened, the hamstring injury. Injury obviously takes into account of these rankings and these risks that we assess on the player. And so we were really happy that we were able to warn you about that last year. So be on the lookout for this Risk Assessor because it has a lot of good things in it, a lot of tools. I mean, we pool a ton of sites together to get this data to get you a rating on these players. Also, we had a high risk rating on Le'Veon Bell last year at 58%. Total risk before he didn't play a single down in 2018. So there are, we'd only do the top 5 rounds because guys get way risky after that anyways. But in those 5 rounds, there's very important players. There's very important decisions. And that's what we want to do. We want to provide you a kit that helps you make the best decisions on draft day. And we think the Risk Assessor does that. And you can find that in the draft kit over at thefantasywhispers.com. for the low price of $10. Johnny, that's a steal.
It's such a steal. And we honestly, the other thing about that is we would not charge something we wouldn't pay ourselves. And I would 100%.
I'm not using, I'm using this thing on draft day.
Oh yeah, we will. Travis and I will be at our drafts with our stuff out, looking exactly what we're doing. So we're
And I remember driving to my very first draft ever, and I had a magazine in the back seat, and that magazine was straight up 3 weeks old. And I was like Googling to make sure that some of the things that were there were accurate. And so to know that I can get basically my magazine, right, my digital copy of this incredible draft kit that is going to be updated as we go along. So when my draft comes, right before the season kicks off that Labor Day weekend, that draft kit that I can start looking at today is going to be carried with me. It's going to be fresh and up to date. It's like the best news ever. I am really excited about it.
That's an important thing that Chelsea brings up too, is that yes, it's going to be updated. So it's not like you don't want to go look at it, right now, because right now you want to set the base for your expectations on these players. You want to go in and say, okay, what's the story freshest right now? And then let your let the updates come in and let your opinion change over time and gradually, instead of a freak out, this is the last known thing. A lot of puff pieces come out even late in August that could make you think differently of a guy. But if you look at the track record and you were able to do that over time, you'd be able to make a more firm decision on a player. And I think I'm really excited about this. We talk about a product we can trust. We were able to, look at the show we made today. We were able to come up with things for this show based on our work within this kit, things that we firmly believe about players here. And so we're really excited to bring this kit to you once again at thefantasywhispers.com. Please go check it out and download it today. One of the last things we, include here is the consistency charts. And Johnny, this is big because it gives you an idea of if you can trust a player or not beyond the risk assessor, because basically this is their finishes as it stacks up against the rest of the field. So we have two different consistency chart breakdowns in there. We have last year's consistency by week, which we will start adding on every year. So, stick with us, Whisper Nation. In a few years, you'll have every week for the last 3 years. But right now we have last year's. Every week is in there. And then we also have the yearly, which we've backed all the way up to 2014. So we're really excited about that. 5 years worth of 5 years worth of statistical data and consistency data there to let us know where these guys finished as they stacked up against the rest of the field. One of my biggest takeaways, Johnny, from this was Julio Jones and Antonio Brown. 5 years of just impeccable consistency of these two. Antonio Brown has never finished outside the top 5 at his position on a yearly basis, and Julio himself has never dipped below the wide receiver 8 at the position. So, Johnny, I just love looking at that and knowing, I know Antonio Brown's on a new team. I know he's not going to have Big Ben anymore, but you're going to be hard-pressed to find a guy that's more, of a professional as far as it comes to doing the work that needs to get done. And then for fantasy reasons, I don't know why we should doubt that he can't be a number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah, and to that point about recency bias, I thought it was such a great thing to have this kind of consistency chart that can cut through your mental games that you play with yourself and say, hey, actually, look at this guy overall. You're just feeling a certain way, and cut through that. Look at the data, and the data speaks louder.
Well, that's how I came to the conclusion about Amari Cooper, right? Because I look at his numbers and I'm like, oh, this guy is actually finishing as, one of the top wide receivers consistently. But then when I go to his weekly breakdowns, and that was where all the information was revealed about him being, boom or bust and all of that. So it's really good for that. But Travis, something that I wanted to bring up was looking at the consistency charts where at the running back position more specifically, and how hard it is. A lot of these guys, we have a ton of consistency charts done on a lot of guys. There is one running back, Travis, that over the last 5 years, so it's not a big sample size, there's one running back over the last 5 years that has been a top tight end, a running back 2 or better. Only one. Do you know who that guy is?
Ooh, last 5 years?
Last 5 years. There's only been one guy to do it.
For all 5 years?
For all 5 years. And it's not a major guy you're going to think. It's not Todd Gurley. It's not Adrian Peterson. It's not
LaShawn McCoy?
No, not LaShawn McCoy. Close.
The
though.
last
That
year
was
yeah, he was pretty consistent.
it's
before that.
Lamar Miller, trusty old
Oh,
Lamar
that's right.
Miller.
Of course,
He is
Lamar.
he is the only guy who to do it over the 5 years. So what this also speaks to is dynasty owners. The dynasty owners out there, you need something like this that can show you when you're drafting. You listen, running backs don't have a long shelf life, no matter how good they are. Todd Gurley has been a monster, and yet, over the last 4 years, yes, he is on that trajectory of the Lamar Miller path, but that's not very likely to happen with running backs. Whereas you go to the wide receivers, and there's a lot more of those guys that are going to remain fantasy relevant for a long period of time. So that's something that I like to take away from the consistency rankings, especially if you're in like a dynasty format. But even so, you can start seeing patterns of running backs who, they go 4 years, and then all of a sudden that's when they start teetering down. So you can kind of make your decisions on guys where you're on the fence with. You can say, well, statistically, because that's all fantasy is, right? We go off statistics, and you go off of odds and probability of something reoccurring. And so that's when I'll start making those tier breakdowns on my own personal rankings above what I've already researched.
Yeah, I love what you said there, Johnny. Consistency is huge. It's all we have in fantasy. And it's, we have to keep going with it and keep going by the numbers and try to trust the process, so to speak. Yep. And you can find those consistency rankings and the rest of what we've talked about in the draft kit at thefantasywhispers.com, which launched today. We're so excited to be putting this out there for you guys. So head on over to the website, check that out. That's not even all of everything. Like we just touched on a couple things there. We have the player profiles. This is an outlook on every top player, over 125 players. So we're freaks. Me and Johnny, we dive into this stuff. We're basically outside these players' homes with binoculars, like watching them to try and tell you a story of what they're doing. We are not doing that, by the way.
Yeah.
But so you don't have all this time, right? You're playing fantasy casually, or maybe you're a nut too, and you like it. But if you're a nut, you're going to want to read this anyways. But if you're the casual fan, you want to be caught up to speed, and that's what these profiles do. They're going to dive you through each player, give you a background of what happened last year, maybe the last couple years, and give you that idea of what you can expect for the fantasy season, the 2019 season. We also have within those profiles a couple bonus articles from our sponsor, Fanatic. FANATIQ. Go check out that app, and they've got a couple statistical breakdowns. We love that. We'll have our value-based drafting, which helps you out on draft day, assign value based on where a player is going in the draft.
And
we've got so much
position, which is what's great about that. So
it helps you draft best player available, which is a great strategy to employ no matter what. And then we have that and so much more, guys. Get over to thefantasywhispers.com. Download the draft kit today. Only $10. Chelsea, anything that you're most excited about, most intrigued for in the draft kit?
I mean, I ran through all those player profiles and getting everything formatted into the kit. And I've just got to say, it was really incredible to have such a 360 look at all of these different players. It's not just looking deep at the individual players, but really the schemes that they're set up in, the teams, the situations that we can expect from them. And really, you pull in so much information from years past. In terms of anticipating what's to come out of those people. So it was just exciting. It got me really pumped for the NFL season, just reading this, which is why I wouldn't wait, which is why you should download it right now. Even though we know that information is going to keep evolving, you want to start reading now. I mean, the season's getting so close. Let's get pumped together. And then, I mean, just dang, it's so beautiful. So anybody that's been scrolling on Instagram and seeing those great graphics that y'all have been putting out for the past year, that's what this draft kit looks like. It's a living, breathing version of what you all have been doing. And I just think, I mean, kudos to you and thanks for getting us so well prepared for this fantasy season.
Yeah, I mean, me and Johnny started this thing wanting to win you guys money, championships, all the fame and glory that comes with playing fantasy football, that brotherhood, that bond, the camaraderie that happens with this. And we wanted to bring it to you in a unique way. And so we hope that this draft kit did that for you. We hope that you dive into this thing and you enjoy it as much as we enjoyed making it. And, Johnny, if you got anything else to add.
Well, I just want to say what Chelsea really wanted to say in in her little outro there was that now she's excited because she knows all of Travis and I's whispers, and so now she's in our mind. So now we got to start thinking about that for our league of record.
That's
but
right.
but like it was,
Bro, she's been on the show for like weeks now.
Yeah.
If you think she's just now in our mind, like no.
that's
Yeah,
why
I'm
she
pulling
probably
the
came on the
string.
show in the first place. But
She owns real estate inside your head, John.
all I've got to say is, Travis, we've got a lot of secrets in that draft kit. All you got to do is go to thefantasywhispers.com, pay $10, and you'll get those secrets.
Heck yeah.
We got a secret.
All right, Johnny. Well, that's it for us. We broke down the draft kit for Whisper Nation. If you guys want to know questions as far as the draft kit, what, downloads, update schedule, anything like that, hit us up in the comments below. Shoot us a DM wherever you're listening. We love you. Head over to thefantasywhispers.com today. That's Johnny Game Time Hicks. I'm Big Travie. And for Chelsea, the woman behind the glass, we are the Fantasy Whispers, and we're out. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Whisperers podcast. You can hear more from John and Travis on Google Play, SoundCloud, and iTunes. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at TF Whisperers.